Gonna go right into our next fireside chat entitled Gig 'em, because we got Chancellor of Texas A&M University System here. Want to talk about all the great things they're doing. Chancellor has been very fortunate to know him for many years now. Had a great privilege of working with him when he was leading the governor's efforts after Hurricane Harvey. The governor selected him because he's a get-it-done type of guy, and if you've been following what A&M system has, its growth over the last 10 or 15 years, how long have you been Chancellor? 13 years. You would know that that's the truth. He's both a man of vision and a man of execution, and it's really going to be a great conversation about not only the latest and greatest things that Texas A&M University System are doing with respect to nuclear and how it's going to lead the state of Texas forward, but also its long history as a premier nuclear research institution in the U.S. So, Chancellor, I want to welcome you up here, and thanks for being with us today. And I thought if we might sort of set the stage by talking about the long history that the system has as a premier research institution.
Well, first of all, I want to know where those three students are, particularly the one, where's Gabriel Ivory that held up the sign? There's old Gabriel. Gabriel, you need to know that I'm a political science major. Perry was an animal science major. If you add both of our grade point ratios together, we will equal what you got. So A&M started in the nuclear business in December of 1961. In 1961, the nuclear reactor went critical. That's still at the actually at the airport. It's actually the only nuclear reactor in the world that's next to an airport. At least it's not at the end of the runway. It's over on the side. And we also have several modular reactors that are used for research. But we have about 471 nuclear engineering majors. We graduate about 100 a year. It's the largest nuclear engineering program in the country. And we have been involved in things nuclear. We kind of go back and forth. Sometimes MIT is the #1 nuclear engineering in U.S. News, and sometimes and we're usually #2. One year, I think, we were #1, but it goes back and forth between those two with regard to research and things like that. I would point out, however, that A&M engineering overall research this last year, 3 weeks ago, just passed MIT as the #1 engineering research university in the United States of America, but that's just MIT. Then not too long ago, we put in a bid for Los Alamos. That was back in 2014, I guess. And we partnered with the University of California system. We offered to partner with the University of Texas system, but they said they didn't need us. And then we won that bid when Perry was Secretary of Energy. And then in 2022, they renewed that contract. It's gotten excellent scores, I think the best scores that any contractor's ever had. Our partners in that are Battelle Institute and University of California system. And you know what Los Alamos does. And then last year, we bid on taking over the Pantex project with BWTX and Fluor, and so we have the last part of it, and that's where, of course, nuclear weapons are assembled and disassembled and maintained. At Los Alamos right now, the critical mission is making new pits for the nuclear weapon systems and making sure those weapon systems work. But what a lot of people don't know, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows, is that Los Alamos is way beyond that. I mean, they're into research with medicine, nanotechnology. I mean, it runs the gamut as to what happens in that national lab. And so that's kind of our history. We're also in the process now of applying for the Savannah River project, and we hope to be successful in being one of the partners in Savannah River before it's over with too.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that question with respect to Los Alamos and Pantex, how has y'all's involvement in the operation of the two national labs really kind of benefited the system and the nuclear engineering program at Texas A&M?
Well, first of all, we get about $65 million a year in research opportunities for our professors and principal investigators, but we also send students there during the summers, and so we have interns that go to Los Alamos, New Mexico in the summertime. But we view it as more as a service. I mean, we're a land grant institution, and part of the mission of a land grant institution is public service. A&M is, if it is anything, it is patriotic. I mean, our students are the most patriotic group of young men and women you've ever seen in your life, and this is an opportunity. The reason we bid on it is it's an opportunity to use our expertise at Texas A&M, particularly in engineering, to provide a service for the nation as well.
So I had the good fortune of attending the Texas A&M football game this weekend. Thank you for the invite. It was a boring game, as we discussed, but I think that maybe was welcomed. You know, every time I drive into College Station, I was there twice last week. What a privilege. You know, you pull onto John Sharp Parkway, and right there on the right is the Rellis campus. We're going to talk a lot about what's going on at the Rellis campus, but for this crowd, I was hoping you could kind of describe what it is and what the vision, like the long-term vision is with respect to that campus, so that we can then situate what's going on with nuclear at that campus in a minute.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, the Rellis campus was 2,200 acres of cows and horses. It was an old Army Air Force base that had been given to the city of Bryan, and then Bryan gave it to the A&M system back, 20, 30, 40 years ago. I don't know how long it was. And we kept looking at it thinking there's got to be a higher and better use for this place than that. And so the system, it was under the university, and we took it away from the university and put it in the system. And the two things that we were interested in doing that was, one, research. But the second thing we were interested in is how do we wanted to make a partnership with Blinn College. Blinn College from Brenham has 6,000 kids in Brenham and 14,000 kids in Bryan. And a lot of the reason these young men and women go to Blinn College is because they want the opportunity after a couple of years to be able to transfer into Texas A&M. Most of them, that's not going to happen. And so they were leaving there and going to Huntsville, or they were going to Lubbock, or were going somewhere else. And we wanted to see if there was a way to keep them there. And they obviously want to be Aggies. We want to get them close to it as possible. And so what we did is we have, like, Texas A&M Corpus Christi will send professors down. After 2 years of Blinn, they'll go across the street and get a degree in business from A&M Corpus Christi, or a degree in engineering from Tarleton State, or a degree in criminal justice from Prairie View. Each one of our 10 other universities have some course there that they teach, and they get their degrees without having to leave, without being uprooted, and all this stuff. The second part of it had to do with research. And what really kick-started a lot of it was when the Army Futures Command came into Texas, and it was pretty obvious that General Murray, now General Rainey, wanted a place to do practical research, whether it was robotics or whether it was lasers or whatever, that required something other than downtown Austin. required some land. And so we began building for them the things that would foster that kind of research. One of the things that happened was the Pentagon created a consortium of universities to study and to advance hypersonic weapons for the United States. And so we built, with the legislature's help, a hypersonics gun there that is just about ready. It's been fired once, but it's just about ready. And basically that gun, I mean, keep in mind I'm a political science major, so let me explain this best I can, but that gun basically fires a particle at hypersonic speed to give them an idea of what the shape of that missile, what the shape of that whatever they're firing needs to look like, and so that will become one of the primary test beds for the Boeings, for Lockheed, for all of those, Raytheon and others who are interested in hypersonic weapons. We also have an autonomous robotics course and a vehicular course for the Army. We have the largest 5G test bed that exists in the country, and tons of other things like that, things that you can do experiments on materials, whether it's for roads or buildings or whatever, under extreme pressure, and those kinds of things don't exist anywhere really but one other place in the country, and tons of things like that. I mean, it's literally a place where I'm told by numerous generals, including a 4-star this weekend, that nobody in the Pentagon does not know what the Rellis campus is, because there are so many people that come there from the military, particularly the Army. Space Force, General Saltzman was there. He wants to locate primary research for Space Force on the campus as well. And so we thought that would be a really good place to put SMRs. And so that's where SMRs came from, because we looked at it and said, I mean, we kind of looked at it and said, there are two things that are going to hold Texas back, water and power. And they're kind of interrelated, as Senator Perry well knows. And so we wanted to address the power issue by going out to folks in the private sector, many of whom are here. We did an RFP to gauge the interest. There were about 41 people, companies applied with interest, and we're now negotiating the RFP with that was an RFI. With the RFPs, we're now negotiating with the industries that have applied for that to be there. And what we hope to have there is anything from a 10 megawatt on up, as high as we can get, to be sort of the research place in the country that teaches the rest of the country that these things aren't bad, that they're good. I mean, I suspect if we'd have tried that in California, we'd been shot or run out of the state by now. Probably the same thing on the East Coast, but that ain't the case in Bryan College Station. I mean, I've gotten one nasty email, and that guy didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And the whole time that we're doing it, and everyone is very much aware that we're going to, produce this nuclear SMR test bed on the Rellis campus. And what we hope to do with that is that obviously it would provide power into ERCOT, but we also want to use it to prove to the rest of the country that all of their perceptions that Jane Fonda and all those folks gave them over the years is just absolutely dead wrong. So this is the answer. This is the only answer that's out there. If you're interested in the climate stuff and you're interested in power, this is what paves the way, and the SMRs are about the safest thing on the planet. And so we hope that when cities and other people, whether it's AI-oriented people, folks like that are interested in SMRs, while they're waiting for their applications to be processed, we can be training all of their personnel on that test bed so that when that SMR gets built in Dallas or wherever it is, they can immediately go there and go to work and things like that. But we hope to prove to the rest of the world that all of these misconceptions about nuclear energy are dead wrong, particularly dead wrong when you look at SMRs and how they're built.
Well, I mean, I think, so just to back up here for a minute, I alluded to earlier this morning that the Alliance has been around for a couple years, and for a year and a half, it was a piece of paper and some conversations I was having. Chancellor Sharp and Texas A&M University System are our first member, and they did that in anticipation of these announcements about the Rellis campus. And I think what's, to me, amazing about the fact that they're leading the way, I'm not surprised they're leading the way. It's just the vision that the system has, not only to what it means for the Rellis campus and the system, but what it's also going to do to propel the industry forward is just it's a remarkable vision. I think everybody in this room is very grateful that you guys are playing that leadership role. A follow-up question I've got is, what is the system other than the connection with the Rellis campus? Obviously, we see how it fits with all the other things that you're doing there. But in terms of your own power needs in College Station, in terms of an eye towards AI and data centers, is there a longer-term vision that you have with respect to the nuclear industry and the system?
Well, I mean, we frankly don't need it for the needs that we have on the Rellis campus. I mean, we've got the power. Bryan, Texas Utilities has been great, and we have everything we need for the foreseeable future, we believe. The statistics we look at is just two things happening here. One is Texas is just growing like hell, and then you add AI to that, and it just goes crazy. I mean, if you Google something, you use a certain amount of energy. If you chat GPT something, you use 10 times more energy than a Google hit. I mean, that's just a small example of what's happening. And so if you want to be a part of AI and the data centers and all of the things that are coming here, not to mention Bitcoin mining and everything else, you see the projections of what's fixing to happen. We're going to need probably about 150 gigawatts of power by 2030, something like that. And we're sitting at about, 80, something like that. I forget what the number is right now. I mean, if you want Texas to prosper with all of these folks moving in and all of this industry and stuff and these new uses, you got two things that can hold this state back, and one of them is energy, and the other one is water. And I would submit to you that they're both intertwined, because with enough energy and enough cheap energy, you can help solve the water problem, as Senator Perry's obviously trying to do with this. And so we just think that nuclear power is the answer. I mean, we don't think that you're going to do away with gas-fired generators. We love them too. But nuclear power is the only answer. And anybody with any common sense, look at those numbers and you will come to the conclusion, if you want to have power, if you want to make sure that when the next Winter Storm Uri comes, you have enough power to handle it, you better have nuclear energy sometime in the future, or you're in a world of deep, stuff.
What kind of stuff? No. Want to switch gears here. We got legislative session coming up, and former legislator, former comptroller, we got a lot of money, it looks like, $20+ billion, and a rainy day fund that's likely to reach its constitutional cap. Is there anything, I guess a two-part question, is there anything the system itself is looking at with respect to either the test bed at Rellis or otherwise nuclear, number one, and number two, just given your very long illustrious history with the state of Texas, what would you be thinking about doing in light of the two problems that you just mentioned in terms of water and power as they convene here in January?
Well, we have the water. It's just distributed in weird places. And so to move that water, it's going to require energy. It's going to require capital commitments to do it. But I think that I think one of the things that we're asking for in the next session of the legislature is an energy test bed. And it's not, and nuclear's a part of that. There are several other things in part of it. Matter of fact, one of the companies that's interested in coming to Rellis is a fusion company. Of course, that's somewhere down the road here. We even have one company that's interested in building a manufacturing plant at Rellis to manufacture SMRs. It's a foreign company. But we think, an energy test bed or energy institute looking at all kinds of things that are going to produce the kind of power that this state is going to have in the very near future is something that we can develop and help guide that process. So we're asking for, how much money is that, Jeannie? Just $200 million, no problem. I get that.
All right. Well, I think we're almost time to wrap up here, and I think I'll just take a moment of personal privilege to thank you on behalf of the folks in this room for, your leadership. I mean, really, you guys, like I said earlier, were our first member, and obviously it's a big deal to Alliance. You're also our first major sponsor for this event, and if looking around the room, we've got a packed house here in the middle of the afternoon. 350 people. I said this morning that my initial conception of this event is kind of laughable to look out in the room and say this now, was a couple dozen people sitting around the table for a couple hours one morning before legislative session started. And obviously, I think you all have seeded our group, the Alliance. You've seeded this event. And I think what you're doing at Rellis is going to seed the nuclear industry in this state. And I think everybody in this room really, really appreciates your leadership and your vision on it. So I really want to thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here, and thank all of you for what you're doing for the future of Texas. I would like to point out one thing. When I was walking in here, one of the students said, "Man, Chancellor, boy, that's a cool job." Let me just explain something to you. I get no respect. And I want to tell you what happened to me last Friday before I walk off the stage, to show how little respect I get. So Friday afternoon, at noon actually, I had to give a speech to the distinguished professors at A&M. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with distinguished professors, but they are not happy when their chancellor is late, and I was late. So fortunately, I have this God pass that lets me park wherever the hell I want to on campus. And so I parked in the middle of the street, jumped out of my Ford F-250, went up there, gave my damn speech to the distinguished professors, and came back down. They weren't mad at me. And somebody operating a backhoe had just hit a gas line. And so this yellow tape was all around this area, and guess what was in the middle of that yellow tape? My Ford F-250. So I didn't want anybody to know that was me, so I sat down on the edge of the Memorial Student Center and minded my own business, waiting for them to clear it out so I could sneak my truck out of there. And this student from Brownwood, Texas, sits next to me, and he starts chit-chatting. He's from Brownwood. His daddy is a rancher around there, and he's a biomedical science major, which means he's never made a B in his life. And I pointed out that I had that in common with him, and I also never made a B. That was aspirational. And we're chit-chatting and everything. All of a sudden, he gets real quiet, and he kind of pokes me like that, and he says, "How'd you like to be the dumbass that parked his Ford truck over here?" Anyway, so that's how much respect I get at this campus. But thank you all for what you do for the future of Texas.
Thank you.